Hello, friends and colleagues, and welcome to the Tourism Skill Shop, hosted by State of Washington Tourism, SWT. My name is Matthew Ozuna, and I am the Destination Development Manager at SWT. I will be introducing today's webinar on familiarization tours. Those are FAM tours for short. Please utilize the chat function in Zoom and say hello. Let us know where you are zooming in from today. Feel free to share your questions and comments in the chat as well. You can also use the Q&A feature near the end of the webinar. Now, if you don't know, the Tourism Skill Shop is one of many industry educational programs from State of Washington Tourism. This webinar series will engage with colleagues across the tourism sector and broaden their industry knowledge, skills, and network. Each webinar will highlight a specific issue or skill for tourism professionals to ponder and discuss with industry experts. SWT will host live webinars of the Tourism Skill Shop on the third or fourth Thursday of every month from 10 to 11 a.m. These webinars are free and open to all tourism stakeholders. The webinars are also recorded and shared with registrants as well as other users on the SWT YouTube channel. For Tourism Skill Shop and other industry updates, visit the SWT industry website, sign up for the industry update newsletter, and follow SWT on LinkedIn. Tourism stakeholders may also join the SWT Facebook group for further discussion on topics related to the Tourism Skill Shop and other industry news, issues, and events. Now let's dive into today's webinar on FAM tours. FAM tours are industry-specific trips organized to give travel professionals such as travel agents, tour operators, journalists, and social media influencers an in-depth experience of a destination, hotel, attraction, or other tourism-related product. Their primary goal is to help these travel professionals, tourism professionals, become familiar with a destination or service so they can provide offerings, itineraries, and recommendations to others. With so much time and resources devoted to FAM tours, cooperation among tourism stakeholders is vital for proper planning, clear expectations, and successful outcomes. Today, webinar attendees will learn how to work with State of Washington Tourism and other tourism stakeholders to develop well-organized, insightful, and results-oriented FAM tours. This webinar will cover a range of best practices attributed to FAM tours involving costs, planning, stakeholder engagement, and visitor experience. I'm joined by a few guest speakers today, including my colleague, Lisa Cruz. Hello, Lisa. Lisa is the Tourism Development Manager at SWT. She manages travel trade and media activities in the international markets of the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Benelux, and Canada. In addition to representing SWT at domestic and international trade shows, Lisa curates and manages several FAM tours each year and collaborates on special events that promote Washington State products and services. Before joining SWT, Lisa worked in sales and marketing for tour operators in Alaska. Next is Adam Stewart. He is the Communications and Travel Trade Manager at Yakima Valley Tourism. Adam holds a bachelor's degree in business marketing and a minor in visual communication design. He also has a master's degree in tourism management from the University of Westminster, a dynamic international education institution situated in the heart of London. Adam is also from Yakima originally. He's a graduate of Davis High School. And Adam, I don't know if you know this, but I actually swam for Davis High School back in the day. So that's our connection there. Dan Moore is the COO of the Adventure Travel Hub, a family of 6 small experiential travel companies, including Evergreen Escapes, which has participated in FAM tours since 2008. Dan is also the founder and CEO of the consulting firm Pandion, which provides consulting services for tourism businesses and destination communities. He is also a founding board member of State of Washington Tourism. And Dan, this is your second Tourism Skill Shop webinar. You were actually on, I think the first year on sustainable tourism or sustainable business practices. So good to see you again. And next we have Corey Rogers. He is the general manager at the Lodge at St. Edward's State Park. He remains an integral part of the opening team for Kevin and Mary Daniels and their visionary product to convert a historic seminary building into a luxury hotel. Nearing its fourth anniversary, the lodge at St. Edward's State Park received a Michelin key, one of only 3 hotels in Washington State to do so. Congratulations there, Corey. Corey has been working with Columbia Hospitality since moving from Chicago to Seattle with his wife and newborn daughter in 2014. Before that, he managed an award-winning restaurant group, dabbled in urban farming, and opened the first certified organic brewery in Illinois. Corey, again, thank you for joining us today. Now, folks, we'll transition briefly uh, for a quick discussion with me and Lisa, just to give you some background information on fan tours. So, Lisa, what do you have for us today? Oh, you're on mute, Lisa.
I'm so excited, I forgot to unmute. Today, we will be talking about FAM tours. We'll be discussing some best practices and tips that you can use as you are creating FAM tours to your destinations. We'll talk about the key players from the DMO to the supplier to the escort and tour operator. We'll talk about some goals and ROI that you can receive from hosting FAMs, and then discussing the differences between hosting travel trade and travel media.
Excellent. Looking forward to it, Lisa. So let's start out with a very basic question. Just to reiterate what I mentioned a little earlier, you probably have a little bit more detail here. What exactly is a FAM, or what types of FAMs are there?
Well, as you highlighted, a FAM tour is our way to introduce somebody to what Washington has to offer. It's our opportunity to enhance product knowledge, to generate media interest, and to build strong relationships with our partners. And we want to acknowledge our DMOs that are in the room, our suppliers, and our tour operators. All of you have contributed to the FAM tours that the state of Washington has been organizing, and I really appreciate your support. It makes my job easier for sure, but it's an honor to work with all of you. So thank you for your support.
And Lisa, when I go around the state and working with tourism stakeholders on destination development projects, it's a lot about educating not only industry folks, but also local residents, elected officials. And so it's one thing to kind of see the benefits of tourism and to invest in tourism and investing in FAM tours to help with promotion and management. So my question to you is like, why should folks invest in a FAM tour?
Well, if we can invite one product manager to our state and we can provide an itinerary that showcases the best of Washington, the cost to us might be around $5,000 to host them for the week. That's including support we get from our DMO partners along the way and our suppliers. But when they go back and they sell that itinerary and their travelers come to the state of Washington, the return on that investment, I'll just make a quick example and you'll see this later in the program. If they were to spend $200 a day on average, and we had 10 people travel, that's $2,000 a day. Over 16 days, that's $320,000 of an investment just for hosting one person at your hotel during the season. So it is a great way to expand your marketing reach, to bring customers from other destinations to your property that they may not have awareness of. And so by participating in the FAM tour and hosting the operators or the media, you have that direct one-on-one connection to a large audience that is selling on our behalf in the markets that they're in.
Well said. Yeah, facts and figures on your side. I think those are hard to dispute. Okay, just have one or two more questions for you, Lisa, before we turn it over to your PowerPoint deck. And you might have a few slides that you want to share too. But let me see. How does one begin to organize a FAM tour?
Well, I will be going into that in just a slide a little bit later, Matt. So if I can benchmark that question and come back to it, I think it's 4 slides down here.
Okay,
I would love to push that one forward a little bit in the process.
no worries. Well, I think then this last question sets you up for your entire presentation. What are some tips for managing a FAM tour?
All right, that's exactly where I wanted to go.
All righty.
So first of all, uh, just to give you a quick interjection on the markets that we're serving that are coming for these FAM tours, one of the tips is defining who your audience is. And so when we're working with the international markets, each international market may have different cultures and traditions. So it's important to recognize the country or market that they're coming from. The state of Washington has contracts with agencies in the UK, Ireland, Germany, Australia, and project work relationships with agencies in Japan, South Korea, France, and the Benelux markets. These are our extended marketing branches, and they help us get the word out to uh, tour operators and also consumers in these regions. So as we are developing the FAM, knowing who's coming is key. And give me just a moment here while I scroll to the correct part of my notes because I'm multitasking on a small laptop today. Okay, I would love to see in the chat, how many of you are already hosting FAMs? Are you hosting travel trade, media, or both? So if you can add that to the chat, Matt will keep an eye on that. And if you haven't hosted anybody yet, or you're just getting started, that's great to know as well. When we are asked to host a FAM trip, the first question that I ask is, who is on the FAM trip? For travel trade, it's helpful to know if the attendees are tour operators or travel agents. And if they are tour operators, what department do they work in? Are they in product development, operations, or marketing? When we are hosting travel agents, it's important to know whether they are focused on meetings and incentives, luxury travel, or adventure travel. And for media FAMs, knowing who they're writing for is key to crafting that meaningful message for the FAM itinerary. When you receive a media request, oftentimes the journalist will be on assignment for a specific story, but sometimes they're writing for a daily newspaper and they have more freedom with their editor, so they can choose the topic of their choice and generate their column. Working with bloggers and influencers is also a great way to get the word out about your destination. As you understand their audience, be sure to note whether they're talking to business professionals, consumers, specific types of travel, or lifestyle interests. And it's essential that both the host and the guest understand the objectives, whether it's to develop products or influence travel. So we send out a FAM request form that every attendee has to fill out, which gathers the necessary administrative details, who's traveling, what kind of allergies they might have, any special physical accommodations we may need to provide. But it also includes a section that tells us what they know about Washington, what they'd like to know about Washington, and what they're currently selling or producing in their stories about Washington. So as we're developing the FAM, now that we have our list of attendees, let's take a moment to focus on some of the key elements that serve as our roadmap to a successful experience. First and foremost, identifying who is hosting the experience. When FAM opportunities come to SWT, we always connect with our DMO partners, and then they reach out to the various suppliers in their region to gain support for the FAM. This collaboration helps us bring the best together, the best guides, escorts, transportation companies, hotel suppliers, restaurants, and this creates a seamless experience. Next, it's crucial to consider the timing of their visit. What time of year are they traveling? Can the destination that I want to take them to host them at that time of year? How long can they immerse themselves in the beauty of Washington? And will they be joining an escorted trip or will they be traveling independently? All of these details come together to shape that overall experience, and they should be on your checklist of questions as you go through to consider the FAM coming to your region. Once we've established those specifics, we'll talk about budget. What expenses will be covered, which ones are not, and who's responsible. The sooner you can clarify the budget process, the easier the planning process will be. Now, selecting our partners. In the accompanying photo, you'll see my, oh, did I go past it too fast? Sorry. There we go. You'll see my colleague Sam Castillo from Visit Seattle. Sam and I have a really great synergy together, and we host a lot of FAMs coming from the international market. Our international visitors tend to stay longer and spend more when they're in market. So when our hosts, tour operators come from the international markets, they'll spend a few days in Seattle before they embark on the rest of their journey to explore the state of Washington. Through this increased visibility that our partners gain, they should also be prepared to help actively facilitate the FAM and provide a safe, reliable, and collaborative partnership throughout the FAM tour. And it's equally important to manage our time as we're traveling through the state. If you are hosting a guest for lunch and there's a set end time because there's an activity to follow, it's important that all partners work together to follow that timeline schedule. As we rally our host partnerships and we've established the roles that each of us will carry out during the FAM tour, it's important to know who's managing each aspect of the FAM tour. It may be that the state of Washington helps curate the overall itinerary, but then the DMOs have more insight and control in their local region and can help us fine-tune that itinerary to provide a very effective FAM tour. We try to stay very organized in our communication, and especially when preparing the itinerary, we use a tool called Travify. The Travify platform allows DMO partners to collaborate with the state of Washington and upload details about the events and activities partners are enjoying on the FAM tour. At the end, the FAM participant will receive a full itinerary, and their itinerary has resources for connections in the future and also is a great way to show off to their friends all the cool things that they did in the state of Washington. So the state of Washington sponsors the use of Travify for our DMO partners. And if you're not actively using that or you would like tips on how to use it better, I'm happy to set up time later to help you. When we are planning the FAM, now that we have who's coming, who we're partnering with, how the budget's been organized, we start planning it. And this is where our participants and the fun really begins. So as we outline the roles, we set up some check-in dates and we craft the itinerary to reflect that travel theme of lifestyle and interests that our attendees are looking for. It's also essential to equip everybody with a know before you go packet. This might include tips that I may have borrowed from Dan over at Evergreen Escapes on what to know before you go and what to wear on your outdoor excursions in the state of Washington. It's really important to send this information a couple of weeks in advance so that your FAM attendees can be prepared when they arrive with the proper clothing and the proper luggage. And don't overlook including contact information so that people can get a hold of you or know where the emergency services may be as they travel through the FAM. And always have a plan B. We have had examples where they filled out all the forms and they arrived to the state, and as we were heading to Mount Rainier, I heard that they couldn't go above 2,700 feet. So you have to be ready for these quick opportunities to redirect. And they had a lovely coffee at the National Park Inn while the rest went to Paradise, and we came back and got them later. So things do have a way of working themselves out. So as we work with our DMO partners, I'd like to ask Adam if he could share some of the key tips and tricks that he uses as he's planning FAM tours when they come to the Yakima Valley. Adam, over to you.
Thanks so much, Lisa. It's good to see some familiar faces here. So the way I work when it comes to planning FAM tours, it's really about those local relationships. So I feel like we have a great member base that understands what we do and know what it means to host FAMs. So it makes my job really easy when building out FAM tours. One thing I will say when choosing key areas and activities, I'm very intentional about how we build those out and really try to create an experience based on what we want to promote and what the travel trade or media are looking for. And then sometimes we have to get creative when using our partners. We have a pretty big region. So while I want to share the love throughout our region, I really try and be intentional to create an experience based on what we're looking for. And then that also includes me being well-versed within things that are going on in our destination. So that means knowing the events that are going on, knowing the stories of the people and the places to make for a better itinerary. And so I do things to keep us top of mind and to keep up with different stories and events and things. And then when it comes to planning and logistics, that comes easy to me. And so I really have a good grasp on our region and destination. And so I try and make sure that everyone has enough time at each stop. I've also included in like free time breaks, and then I give buffer time depending on uh, driving time. And so one example of that is since we have a big region, people might be driving for like an hour or something like that. And so if it's going to take you 10 minutes to get to somewhere, I'll make sure you have 15 minutes. And so a lot of planning and logistics goes in there. And then, like I said, when we have to get creative, there was one time that Lisa sent a fam here, and the guy was really specific that he wanted a Harley Davidson motorcycle to take photos of. And so I used all the resources I had, friends, family, everything. And that just comes with the local relationships that I have here, especially growing up here. And so we were able to get it to work out. We had a nice dinner as well with the media and the guy on the motorcycle. So it was a really great experience for that. And then also just knowing when to come, when not to come, um, and having a great sense of this time's going to be better than this time. And then one thing we really pride ourselves on is welcoming people to our destination. So for me, I like to meet everyone that comes here on the first day, whether that's their first stop or um, the last stop of the day. I try and meet them on their first day. We provide a welcome bag to them that gives them a printed itinerary. They have a mobile one as well, so we also use Travefy. Um, and then they have our travel guide and some other um, history information. And then we give them some local goodies and everything. I do write handwritten notes to everyone that comes here. So we really take pride in that. And I feel that's one special thing that we do. We're welcoming these people to our destination, so they should feel taken care of. And then when it comes to follow up, it depends on who sends the FAM to us.
Mhm.
So sometimes it could be State of Washington Tourism, sometimes it could be our PR agency. One time I've even had an editor bring her own fam tour, which was probably the best fam tour I've had since everyone kind of knew each other. And it was all I had to do was write the itinerary and they had a great time. So that's kind of the planning process for me. It usually takes me about a month and a half to write an itinerary, just because, like I said, I'm being intentional about where I'm sending them, what they're going to um, experience, and those kinds of things.
Great. Thank you, Adam. You did a great job presenting what a DMO's role is in hosting the FAM. And I love the creativity that you've had when we brought groups to the Yakima Valley, especially the charcuterie box for breakfast with some Travari bubbles as we headed out on the Cowiche Trail into Cowiche Canyon. So I just love how things come together, and you wouldn't expect it when you first send the FAM request in, and at the end, there's a beautiful itinerary. One of my other favorite partners to work with is Corey up at the lodge at St. Edward Park. And since they are in the city of Kenmore, the city of Kenmore does not have an official visitor center. So in this case, I have communicated with Corey about some of the finer details that are coming with the FAM, but we also always loop in the city of Kenmore in that process. So Corey, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can give us your perspective from when the FAM tour arrives to the lodge at St. Edward Park and all the fun details you bring together.
Absolutely. And first and foremost, let me give a shout out to you, Lisa, for being such a great partner and an amazing ambassador for Washington State tourism. It's always great working with you. So, as a supplier, or more often as we refer to ourselves as operators here at hotels, one of the key things that we always look at is we want to share our passion and really demonstrate the finer details of our craft when we're welcoming guests. And that goes for everyone, whether it's just a hotel guest coming in for a few days to visit, or even more importantly, these guests that may be coming on the fam trips from foreign countries around the world. And so to do so, the biggest aspect that we really have to focus on is the planning stage. And that's where communication with Lisa and others involved are really key for us because we like to get as many details as possible. And that's really what allows us to help create the magic, is because when we're looking at an experience, we want it to be personalized. And those personalization details, they come in many forms and fashions. The more comprehensive, the better. Lisa referenced earlier in the deck something as simple as a dietary restriction or a preference. Here we have a chef who spent 9 years at Noma in Copenhagen. And so the culinary experience is a key part of what we feature here at the Lodge at St. Edward Park. And oftentimes there's a multi-course dinner or meal involved. And so for us to really know what folks enjoy or may have an allergy to, it's a very key part of what we do in the planning stage. In addition to that, we're very experiential in our process here, where we have lots of options as far as what may go into the recreational activities. We have pickleball courts, we have mountain bikes, we have a vendor relationship where we have kayaking on Lake Washington. And so knowing what the aptitudes and the abilities are for those that are visiting, that's also key. So that all goes under the planning stage in making sure that we have all of that put together in a holistic approach so that nothing comes as a big surprise to us. Yes, as Lisa mentioned, you may unexpectedly have bad weather or something of that nature, but the more planning we put into it, the more chance we have for success. Going on from there, we all know in this business, relationships are key. That's what the hospitality and tourism business is all about, building relationships, relationships with our guests, relationships with our colleagues, knowing each other and developing those relationships even further creates a bond and an atmosphere that brings a lot of joy and enrichment to visits to this state and to individual properties like St. Edward. Networking events, that's something that's very key as well. So that's something we take a lot of pride in out here at the property, hosting many networking events, both with Washington State Tourism, Visit Seattle, etc., and other times just for colleagues in the industry. And so by building that network and strengthening those bonds and relationships, it really sets up a pathway of perpetuity and growth. Education and promotion. Yeah, there really can't be any successful story unless you're able to educate on the actual asset you're trying to sell. For me, as the GM here at the Lodge at St. Edward Park, education is key because even though we're 20 minutes from Seattle here in Kenmore, just across Lake Washington, so many folks don't even know about us despite 4 years of being open. And so getting the word out and doing it in a skilled way where you're highlighting all the beauty around us. We live in an amazing state, and here we're in the middle of a state park, 326 acres of old growth forest all around us, nestled on the lake. And so sharing those details in a fashion that really is digestible to those that are in attendance can be very meaningful and beneficial for us. And then measuring success. This is a key part that oftentimes can be neglected because you think you took care of the heavy lift of hosting the fam, getting the word out, then they move on to their next destination. But if you're not able to track the metrics of any return guests or folks that are sent their way due to the outreach, whether it's a media guest with an article in a magazine, online, etc., then you really don't know the impact it had. And knowing that impact is key so that there can be a nuanced decision as you move forward with the next fam trip. You really, even though Lisa referenced the relatively small investment it takes for a potential monumental return, for a hotel operator that, sometimes you're working with very thin margins, those dollars you have to make some hard decisions on. Do we go with the fam trip or do we go with an ad, a splashy ad somewhere, and so knowing what the return is key for us.
Great.
And lastly, just the key details to provide the supplier. Obviously, we need to know room occupancy so we can make decisions on how many rooms we're going to have available at what rate to offer, whether that's free of charge. And then, as we've already discussed about, just knowing those inner details of what guests are looking for on the fam trip.
Perfect. Sorry to rush you on the last point
Yeah.
there, Corey. I clicked forward too fast, and I'm afraid if I click backwards, I'll go in a crazy direction here. So thank you for the great insight from the supplier perspective. And it's always a pleasure to bring FAM groups to you, Corey. I love how attentive your staff is, and you really do take the time to ask the questions that are meaningful when we're bringing the group and really engaging with the parties that we bring to the property to make sure that it's not just another fam tour coming through. It's their first time at your property. You're welcoming that guest into your home, and it's that longtime friend that you haven't seen in years coming back to visit and see what's new at your property is how it feels when we come there. And you just really have a very nice approach in how you welcome us. So thank you for that. Heading into the guide, escort role, tour operator, tie it all together team, we have Dan Moore. And Dan and his team at Evergreen Escapes. See, I knew I would get into a crazy space here. There we go. Have been instrumental in helping us move these FAM groups around the state of Washington. So I will turn it over to Dan. You have about 4 minutes here to go through your portion.
Great. Thanks, Lisa and Matthew, for inviting us to be a part of this. Thanks to Corey and Adam for joining as well. And I'm coming from Seattle, the traditional territory of the Duwamish people, but we're fortunate to be asked to do FAMs all throughout Washington State and Oregon as well. And that's been a huge opportunity for us. And I encourage people to get involved in any way that makes sense to you all. And for me, participating in FAM tours epitomizes what I love about being part of the tourism industry. When we all work together, we all benefit even more so. And so a FAM tour is just a great opportunity for us to team up and figure out and tell each other stories. And our specific role is to, by being that escort and that providing both the transportation as well as a qualified guide to join that joins on the tours as well, is to connect those dots between each of the different parts of the itinerary to tell your story, even if you're not formally part of the program. And then when you're a partner on the FAM, to really showcase and make you the superstar. And so there's a lot of that filling in the gaps. And when we're driving from point A to point B, foreshadowing who we're about to meet with and why is this part of the state so special and how does it compare to other parts of the state. We also, on a FAM tour, you can't see the entire state. And so we're trying to tell the story of not just the route that we chose to focus on, but how diverse is Washington State overall, and why, if people have more time, they should explore all four corners and more of the state. So that's a big part of our job. We get asked to do these things because we have that larger statewide presence, and then that gives an opportunity to showcase on individual partners in each of those locations. It's a lot of work to dedicate staff and vehicles and resources, but we've found the benefit far outweighs any of those challenges. We've gotten media FAMs feature us in in-flight magazines, or more importantly, featured one of our wine partners in an in-flight magazine before. So highly recommend, if you have the capacity to step up when you get asked to participate. You learn a lot, you meet a lot of great people, and not just who are visiting, but all of these partners throughout the state, and you just feel good like you're supporting your destination. And that's one of the reasons why we've been doing this since we've started as a company.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Dan has been an integral part, and I think on my very first FAM tour that we took around the state, we had one of the drivers from Evergreen Escapes, and it really set the tone for me on how the state of Washington is so positive in working together and really welcomes travelers from around the world, but also welcomes sharing information with each other and making sure that those handoffs are smooth as we go around the state. So thank you, Dan, to you and your team. You've done a great job.
Thank you.
As we talk about FAMs, Corey alluded to it, and I know Adam and Dan are also keen on goals. So when we are looking to work with our travel trade partners, the goal working with travel trade, whether we're talking to a receptive tour operator, direct contracts, or travel agents, is to increase our distribution. So if I was a business owner and I only had myself and two people working in the office, it's challenging, which many of you are small businesses and you have a lot on your plate to do in order to operate your business. Participating in a FAM tour increases your distribution of your product at a very small cost. And working with the media coming through FAM tours, it opens up opportunities where your product could be featured in the print magazine, newspaper story, or the social media channels that are presented. It's very easy. Just say yes, and we'll bring them your way. One of the other goals that we have is to create new content, itineraries, and stories. And so for travel trade, some of the new itineraries that we've been working on are fly drive itineraries. Of course, with the World Cup coming, we've been working on helping them learn who the fan zone cities are in the state of Washington and show them ways to link those cities together for itineraries. And then also developing some EV scenic routes that people can travel. For the media, we always look for new ways to reach different audiences. We can pound the drum and talk to the same person all the time and move the needle a certain level, but once we expand it and we start talking to some new audiences and inspiring them to travel to the state of Washington as well, we can all benefit from that. And then sharing by your own social media channels. So if you see an article come out, or maybe Adam just recently sent me the results of a story from the UK FAM in the fall, Adam shares that to the members. If you are a member listed on that FAM, you share that on your social media and it just continues on like that. So we really love your engagement and participation. In the last few minutes I have before Matt and I go into a few group questions here, I just want to do a quick overview on travel trade and how we work through it from the time we introduce the FAM tour through the steps that it takes to get those international visitors to Washington. You'll have access to these tips when you receive the final video from this. Here is an example of an itinerary built in Travefy for a FAM that we did last spring. Axel came out to Washington and he explored Seattle, Friday Harbor, Port Angeles, and Aberdeen. And now he's promoting an itinerary, including those destinations. Likewise, we had Julia Andrea Buck come out in December of 2023, I believe it was, and she produced an itinerary. Oh no, she came out in September of 24, and by December of that year, so just 3 months later, she had an itinerary that included Seattle, the Olympic National Park, Mount Rainier National Park, Yakima, Leavenworth, Winthrop, the North Cascades National Park, Anacortes, San Juan Island, and Seattle. So all of those touch points were in her FAM tour, and thank you, Adam, for the portion of time she spent in Yakima.
Now, Lisa, I want to politely interject because I'm going
Yeah.
to pop a question, probably one of your most important questions into the chat. And I want to make sure you can elaborate on it because we really want people to share. What is the one golden rule, according to Miss Lisa Cruz, when hosting a travel trade fam? So I'm putting that into the chat. Lisa, why did you want to bring that question to everyone's attention?
Well, oftentimes when we're hosting FAMs, people want to do something elaborate, something that wows them. And I think that's fine in the case of media because we really want to create that spark that triggers them to write the story and gets them excited. But when we are working with travel trade, it's important to showcase things in a closer to their regular operating manner so that they see the product that they later will package and sell to their customers. If you create a one-time event and you bring a tour operator to that, it's very difficult for them to go back to their countries and market and product market that product to their future travelers. But if you show them consistent quality service, safe operations, and friendly staff when they come visit you, and consistent schedule, it's much easier for them to sell your product. So the golden rule is to always, for travel trade, present a realistic experience that they themselves can package and sell. Do you have other questions on that one, Matt, or should I keep on rolling?
No, that was good. Provide a real experience that they can book. Yes, something that's not a one-off, something that's, you said, consistent with quality and service. So well said. I'll let you keep on going.
All right. So this is a front page cover of the website featuring the Best of Washington itinerary that Julia put together, and just another reminder on the ROI of a FAM tour. So she spent, let's see, her time with us was 3 days, 4 days in market, and she was able to produce an itinerary 16 days. If she sells 10 people on that itinerary, it should be bringing $320,000 of direct spending into the state of Washington. So when I'm talking about ROI, it does take a little bit of time for us to see those results. She traveled in September. She was very quick, produced her product in December. Selling window for the market would be through February for the summer travel. So I think we will have seen some sales from this itinerary for the 2025 season, but really it's going back around the calendar for the 2026 season that we should see that itinerary really take off. When we're working with the travel media, this is an example. Look at that beautiful winery there. Um, this is the UK Media Fam, and they traveled with us for 5 days in October, traveling through Seattle, North Bend, Woodinville, Kenmore up to see Corey, Yakima to see Adam, Walla Walla, Spokane, and then back to Seattle. The results of their trip, as we went through the itinerary, we created a custom itinerary highlighting the wine and harvest story of Washington State. So we wanted them to be able to showcase not only the tasting rooms in Woodinville, but where the vines are in the Yakima Valley and down in Walla Walla. They got a chance to go out and crush grapes. They took photos all along the way of their journey. They met the winemakers. They walked through the vineyards. They rode e-bikes. We just created a complete immersive experience. And here's those charcuterie boxes from Adam that they put together. At the end, they produced several stories that covered their journey in the state of Washington. The number of partners involved in that tour, I didn't count this up, but I think there's about 28 on the list. So it's not just the state working with the DMO, working with a hotelier. It's all of you along the way that bring this together so that we can create an experience for the journalists that come to Washington. So thank you to all of you. In the end, the 5 journalists came out, and when I pulled the stats for this slide, so far they had produced a total AVE of $116,895. And we still have 2 stories that are yet to be posted, so that is going to go up as it comes through. If you want access to those stories, I'm happy to share them with you. And I think Matt has a few questions for our group.
Yes, well, Lisa, you also had a question, and maybe this is just kind of an informal survey, but I didn't put it in the chat, but you wanted to ask folks if they're familiar with Travefy. You use Travefy as in your job at State of Washington Tourism, but I'm wondering if anyone else on the call uses Travefy. That's not something that we, State of Washington Tourism, kind of subsidizes for our partners, does it?
We have in the past purchased licenses for the DMOs to use, but you
Oh, I
need to
see.
be using the account. And I will need to check with Mike on our funding for 2025 and 26 to see where we are in the renewal for that. But so far, I believe it's subsidized through State of Washington.
Good to know. Thank you for that. Okay, panelists, go ahead and unmute yourselves. We'll kind of start with a group discussion first before we ease in to questions from the audience. So, first question, Adam, we talked about this the other day. We're kind of trying to learn from our mistakes and kind of maximize people advice and benefits that we get from these kind of webinars. So, for all of the panelists, not just Adam, not to put him on the spot, but for all of you, Dan and Corey and Lisa, what have you learned from FAM tours in your kind of work history? What have you learned from, some FAM tours that were less successful than others? What did you learn from your mistakes, essentially? Do you have a story or two you can share with the audience?
Yeah, so I can go first here. I will say when I first started, one of my very first FAM tours went terribly. So there was all sorts of things that went wrong. There was 2 of the riders that were kind of fighting with each other. One lady didn't tell us that she had like mobility problems. I had to fire the driver that we hired. So there was all sorts of things that went wrong, but I was very flexible. with that. And I think one of the people that came on the FAM, actually, and this FAM was probably 3 years ago. She's definitely not writing a story for us. And so just over the years, I have learned to be more intentional about where I'm sending people, and who's gonna best represent the valley, and who I think's gonna give the best story, or whatever the travel, trade, or media are looking for. And then being available to assist when needed, is crucial. So if someone's showing up late, or maybe someone didn't come to the stop that they were supposed to, that all falls on me. And so I guess thankfully I have really good local relationships here. But yeah, just being intentional and being available is one thing that I've learned throughout these FAM tours.
Yeah, good point, Adam. That's that you said that was your first one.
Yeah, very first.
Oh wow, I guess you should have watched this webinar first then, huh?
Yeah.
Any other advice, Dan, Corey, from you?
From my perspective, one key thing is always, quality over quantity. And Lisa talked about trying to avoid that big wow moment that doesn't truly represent something that might be delivered to every incoming guest. But ultimately, I think there's another part too, is like you have these media guests or others on the FAM tour, and they're trying to cram so much into their itinerary at times. And it's understandable because there's so many amazing things to see, but then you at times get a sense of compression and fatigue. And even when we host folks at our property, we're always trying to find that right balance, is how much are we truly cramming into the few hours or the day that we have with them, so that they can savor the moment and actually remember it in a memorable way, versus something that is just so compressed that they take very little away from it other than their notes that they jotted down. So quality over quantity is what I look at.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah, and I'd say just do your research. Who's coming? Where are they coming from? What are guests from that part of the world interested in? That's what, I mean, again, we see a lot of the partners as we're escorting the groups around, and there are some that do that research and they knock it out of the park. And some people think that they're pitching to somebody coming from Texas when they're coming from France or wherever in the world, and they don't realize there's a difference of between the visitor. So yeah, that's what I would suggest. Do your research. Make sure you are presenting relevant information for who you're speaking to.
Excellent. Okay, I'll ask one more question. And folks on the call, attendees, feel free to start thinking about questions that you might have for our panelists. I'll look to the chat for those or the Q&A. But my next question for the panel, typically, how long is the lag time between the completion of the FAM tour and when the FAM tour starts generating results, or when the suppliers or DMOs, hoteliers, and tour operators start to see the results?
I can take that one if you guys would like. So uh, oftentimes it's a different timeline for media than it is your tour operators. And I think from the tour operator's perspective, the time of year that they experience the FAM versus their product selling cycle is an important key to keep in mind. So if they come on a FAM tour in April or May, and they learn about your product and they go back home and they start building the product, the reality is that it won't be in their product catalog until fall for the next season. So that experience that they had at your property in April of 2024 might take close to a year before you start to see customers coming. On the media side, it could be something as quick as a digital article that comes out the following month, or it could be that they're writing for a publication that has a editorial schedule and it's slated for 9 months in the future or 18 months in the future, depending on the publication. So you need to have a little bit of faith and patience and know that eventually it does come back around and work in your favor, that they came to your property and made the experience.
Thanks, Lisa. And yes, I see a question from Annie. I'll, it's a good question. Annie asked this. I'll kind of just get right to the point. How do you determine which FAMs you should take on and which ones have a greater ROI than others? Is that a good one for you, Lisa?
Can you repeat it one more time? I'm sorry, I was monitoring the chat as well. I apologize.
Yeah, how do you determine which FRAMs to take on from a standpoint from state tourism office or from local tourism office or even just kind of a local business? And really, so, I guess you're trying to kind of figure out the return on investment there.
I usually look at what the outcome would be at the end game of it. So, do we have budget available? Do we have time available? Is this person, if they're in the travel trade, a person of influence who can create that product when they get back to their company? If they're in the media, do they have an assignment already coming? So I try to evaluate because we're still at State of Washington in our early stages of coming back and hosting the FAMs. We have a limited budget and we do rely on our partners. And so I look at who's coming, what story they're telling, how it benefits the state of Washington, because it's unfortunate. I can't say yes to everybody that asks to come on a FAM tour, but the ones that we are bringing out, we have gone through a step to determine that there should be some positive results coming from their experience here in Washington.
And on these fan tours, Lisa, how many of the how many aspects, components of the fan tour are paid by the state tourism office, the local DMO, or like Corey, does the hotel kind of take that cost, or are a lot of these things kind of offered for free?
I think it's a blend, and everyone on the call here, working with Dan, he helps support us in the shoulder seasons and the winter season with a rate that's slightly below his retail so that we can operate our tours. Corey has helped us with arranging meals or special check-in times or special checkout times to make things happen. Adam's been a huge supporter in in their budgets. I'm sure they've built in a category line item that they can attribute, like Corey said, giving a room up or buying a fancy ad. Which one do you do? Which one brings that better ROI for you? So it's a matter of each entity managing their budgets and figuring out how they spend their marketing dollars, because you can look at a FAM tour as a marketing expense. And that's exactly what you should do is you're putting something out there to advertise your company in this mode or method versus buying the ad or placing the Google listings.
Excellent. And I'm looking at the chat and at the
Can I just
Q&A.
jump in real quick,
Oh,
Matthew?
yeah,
I
go
think
ahead, Dan.
Annie's point also kind of goes a little bit even more complicated because she's being asked for DMCs, which are not the DMO, and they're going after proposals and probably and likely don't have a specific budget but if they get they win the bid, everyone benefits in that respect. So I think two things. One, like Lisa said, what we try and do is just get our basic costs covered so that we're not we're opportunity cost is lost. But we do it in shoulder season primarily or winter season. And then I would say with the DMC folks that are, you pick the ones that are sending you business, and if they're sending you business, they're legit. If they're just asking for something for free and they don't come through, and then at some point you need to maybe take a risk with some of them if you think that they're a good partner overall. But I think it becomes very challenging when you're expelling everything for free. I think finding that right balance, and the state of Washington has been great at just really understanding what our basic costs are to do this. But and we're always in negotiation. If the budget's lower, we'll figure out a way to make it happen because we get so much benefit from being a part of it.
Yeah, well said. Thank you, Dan. Okay, I'm going over to the Q&A feature now. I see a question from Marvin. How does one get involved with Washington State Tourism and to become a stop on the FAM tour? Lisa, I think that's a question for you.
Well, I definitely want to know who is interested in helping us, but connecting with your local DMOs or your local hoteliers who maybe you already see are participating in the FAM tour. That would be my first step, is within your local community who is already participating. Go to your DMO, make sure they know you're interested. Go to your tour operators, make sure they know you're interested. Sometimes we haven't called on you because we didn't know you had the flexibility to participate with us. So it's not that we don't love you. We just haven't gotten there yet. So you may be next.
Okay, and I see another question from Alex in the Q&A feature. So what about far-flung places in Washington? Are those still eligible for a FAM stop? I mean, that are pretty remote or take longer travel times? How do we incorporate those into the work that we do, Lisa, Adam, or even Dan?
Adam, do you want to take this one? You have a pretty large region to cover.
Yeah. So I, like I said, I try and spread the love. So if I'm hosting a fam tour, it may depend on where people are driving from or flying from, or how long they're staying in our region. So typically 3 nights is probably the maximum time of stay in our region. And if it's going to be 3 days, I know that I can get them to each part of the region with at least 1 or 2 stops. It might be a lot of driving, but I know that I can get them further down the valley and then back up to Yakima to experience all of the valley. And then if it's a few days, we have a small airport, but we also have Tri-Cities that's close, and then Seattle as well. So it depends on what they want to focus on. So sometimes we can partner with other destinations or State of Washington tourism. And if they're coming from Seattle, we can maybe go through like Mount Rainier, or if they're coming from Tri-Cities, we can hit some of our members down in Prosser and Benton City and throughout the other towns in the valley. So I really try and cater it to where they're coming from.
Yeah, that's a good point, Adam, where they're coming from and where they're going. So in some cases, you can go straight through the entire Yakima Valley, as opposed to just doing one section. Folks, we are about right at time. Wow, good job, everyone. I see one question from Emily. Emily is asking, is there a list somewhere that has all the DMOs across the state? Well, sort of. Emily, feel free to contact Lisa and myself, and we can kind of give you a rough idea of who you need to contact. Sometimes the Chamber of Commerce acts as the official destination marketing organization of a visitor destination or a visitor community, as opposed to, Visit Seattle or Visit Spokane. Smaller communities have their chambers do the work.
Yeah.
We're right at time. Oh, Lisa, go ahead.
I just want to add one thing real quick, which will make us a minute over. But sometimes I'm asked by entities that aren't tour operators, like in Port Angeles recently, I was asked by a grocery store, how can we be involved in a FAM tour? We make these great deli sandwiches. And so we worked together to find a way that they could put something in the welcome bag that would introduce the participant to them, whether it's a coupon for a few dollars off the sandwich or whatnot, a way to connect that local market with them. And then because our FAM tours are fast moving and we don't always get time to see every partner in the region, sometimes we will host a reception where we invite some of the suppliers in the region to come join us and network with the tour operators, and then share their story over some appetizers. So there are other ways to get involved if we can't bring the FAM directly to you. And with that, I will hand it back to Matt because I know we are at the end of the minute. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, great job, panelists. Thank you, attendees, for joining. This was a great webinar. I knew it was going to be jam-packed with information and great discussion. So stay tuned. We'll hope to see you again next month, where we focus on online business listings and nonprofit listings as well, with Google and State of Washington Tourism's new partner, Local. So stay tuned for that. More information will come out in the industry newsletter for